ya la 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 Shalom Alechem, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech, Malachei HaMlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Boachem LeShalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon, Malachei HaMlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, la la la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, la la la. Baruch Huni L'Shalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech, Malachei HaMlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Seitchem L'Shalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon, Mi Malachei HaMlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la la. Ya la 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 ya la 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 Shabbat Shalom. La 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 la.
That's it?
You need more?
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Welcome to everybody who is here in person, and welcome to those who are live streaming for our Shabbat service and for the service of Yom HaShoah v'Hagvura, the day of remembrance of the Holocaust and of the heroes and their heroic acts during that terrible period in history. I want to welcome forward as we begin our service the people who are going to light the 6 memorial candles in memory of those who perished in the Holocaust. I want to invite forward Hannah Freeman, Eddie Levine, Ruth Berger and Susan Berger, and Helga Miller and Steve Miller. While they are gathering, and before we light the candles, I want to offer 2 brief readings which I think you may find complementary to one another. The first one is by Elie Wiesel. How does one mourn 6 million people who died? How many candles does one light? How many prayers does one recite? Do we know how to remember the victims, their solitude, their helplessness? They left us without a trace, and we are their trace. And the second reading by Alexei Bernhardt. We talk about them because we are proud. We talk about them because they deserve to be remembered. We talk about them because even though they are not physically with us, they are never far from our mind. We talk about them because they are a part of us, a part that we could never ignore or disown. We talk about them because we love them still and always will. Nothing will ever change that. If we can please light the candles.
אשרי הגפרור שנשרף והצית לכבוד. אשרי הלהבה שבהרה בסתרי לבבות. אשרי הלבבות שידעו לכבוד בכבוד. אשרי הגפרור שנשרף והצית לכבוד. אשרי הגפרור שנשרף והצית לכבוד. אשרי הלהבה שבהרה בסתרי לבבות. אשרי הלבבות שידעו בכבוד. אשרי הגפרור שנשרף והצית לכבוד.
Let's just have a moment of silence. I'm pleased to now call Kathy Lesser-Mansfield, who will light our Shabbat candles and read on page 3.
As these Shabbat candles give light to all who behold them, so may we, by our lives, give light to all who behold us. As their brightness reminds us of the generations of Israel who have kindled light, so may we, in our own day, be among those who kindle light. Blessed are you, Adonai, our God, sovereign of the universe, who hallows us with mitzvot, commanding us to kindle the light of Shabbat.
Amen.
We continue now in our prayer books on page 6. We entered the sanctuary to welcome Shabbat. Within these walls, we sit surrounded by numberless generations. Our ancestors built the synagogue as a visible sign of God's presence in their midst. Throughout our long history and our endless wanderings, it has endured, a beacon of truth, love, and justice for all humanity. Its presence guided our ancestors to lives of righteousness, holding up to them a vision of their truest selves. Let us continue together. Now we in our turn come into this sanctuary to affirm the sacredness of our lives. May we enter this place in peace. May holiness wrap around us as we cross its threshold. Weariness, doubt, the flaws within our human hearts, the harshness of the weak. Let these drop away at the door. In the brightness of Shabbat, let peace settle upon us as we lift our hearts in prayer, turning now to page 27 for the singing of Lamdeni.
Teach me, O God, a blessing, a prayer on the mystery of a withered leaf, and ripen fruits of fair, on the freedom to see, to sense, to breathe, to know, to hope, to despair. Teach my lips a blessing, a hymn of praise, as each morning and night you renew your days, lest my days be as the ones before, lest routine set my ways.
We turn now to page 28, and as you are able, I invite you to rise for the Baruch Hu.
Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMevorach, Baruch Adonai HaMevorach, Le'olam Va'ed.
Together, praise Adonai, to whom praise is due forever. Praise be Adonai, to whom praise is due now and forever. Continuing at the top of page 33, we read together. As you taught Torah to those whose names I bear, teach me Torah too. Its mystery beckons, yet I struggle with its truth. You meant Torah for me, did you mean the struggle for me too? Don't let me struggle alone. Help me to understand, to be wise, to listen, to know. Lead me into the mystery. Baruch atah Adonai Ohev Amo Yisrael.
Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad Baruch Shem Kivod Malchuto Le'olam Va'ed.
Together, Hear, O Israel, Adonai is our God, Adonai is one. Blessed is God's glorious majesty forever and ever. You may be seated. We turn now to page 36 and chant together the V'ahavta.
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבבך, ושיננתם לבניך, ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם.
We read together. You shall love Adonai your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your might. Take to heart these instructions with which I charge you this day. Impress them upon your children. Recite them when you stay at home and when you are away, when you lie down and when you get up. Bind them as a sign on your hand and let them serve as a symbol on your forehead. Inscribe them on the doorposts of your house and on your gates. Thus you shall remember to observe all my commandments and to be holy to your God. I am Adonai your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt to be your God. I am Adonai your God. Adonai Elohechem Emet. On page 42.
השכיבנו אדוני אלוהינו לשלום, לשלום, והעמידנו מלכנו לחיים. ופרוס עלינו סוכת שלומך, ופרוס עלינו סוכת שלומך. Shelter us beneath your wings, O Adonai. Guard us from all harmful things, O Adonai. Keep us safe throughout the night, till we wake with the morning's light. Teach us, God, wrong from right. השכיבנו אדוני אלוהינו לשלום, לשלום, והעמידנו מלכנו לחיים. ופרוס עלינו סוכת שלומך, ופרוס עלינו סוכת שלומך.
We turn now to page 48, and I invite you to rise for the Amidah.
Adonai sifatai tiftach ufi agiti hilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu ve'Elohei avotenu ve'imotenu Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Ha'el HaGadol HaGibor HaNorah, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, V'konei HaKol, וזוכר חסדי אבות ואימהות, ומביא גאולה לבני בניהם, למען שמו באהבה, מלך עוזר ומושיע ומגן. ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן אברהם ועזרת שרה. אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחייך כל אתה, רם להושיע. מוריד הטל, מחכה חיים בחסד, מחיה הכל ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ורופא חונים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר, מי כמוך בגבורות, ומדום מלך, מלך ממית ומחיה, ומצמיח ישועה, ונאמן אתה לחיות הכל. ברוך אתה אדוני, מחיי הכל.
Continuing now at the top of page 53, let us read together. Days pass and the years vanish, and we walk sightless among miracles. God, fill our eyes with seeing and our minds with knowing. Let there be moments when your presence like lightning illumines the darkness in which we walk. Help us to see wherever we gaze that the bush burns unconsumed, and we, clay touched by God, will reach out for holiness and exclaim in wonder, how filled with awe is this place, and we did not know it. Blessed is the Eternal One, the Holy God. Baruch atah Adonai Ha'el HaKadosh. You may be seated. And on page 55, let us read responsively. May these hours of rest and renewal,
Open our
hearts to joy and our minds to truth. May all who struggle find rest on this day.
May all who suffer find solace.
May all who hurt find healing on this day.
May all who despair find purpose.
May all who hunger find fulfillment on this day.
And may this day fulfill its promise.
Baruch atah Adonai Mekadesh HaShabbat.
Say Adonai Eloheinu Be'amcha Yisrael U'tifilatam Be'ahavat Tirkabel. Humbled in prayer we seek to reach you, hoping to be heard, hearts open wide, longing to be true. Oh, let us know that you are near. Open our hearts that we may hear your still clear voice within us all. May we be worthy in our prayer and feel your presence everywhere, and may we answer when you call. Say Adonai Eloheinu Be'amcha Yisrael U'tifilatam tit kabel. Oh, let us know that you are near. Open our hearts that we may hear your still clear voice within us all. May we be worthy in our prayer and feel your presence everywhere. And may we answer when you call. And may you answer when we call. Ritzei Adonai Eloheinu. Ritzei Adonai Eloheinu.
We have moments now for silent prayer.
Eli, Shaloi Gamer Leolam, Hachol Yayam, Rishru Shel Hamayim, Berak HaShamayim, Tefillat Adam, Achol V'Hayam, Rishru Shel Hamayim, Berak HaShamayim, Tefillat Adam. Ani ma'amin, ani ma'amin, ani ma'amin, ani ma'amin. Ma'amuna shalema, Vivi'od HaMashiach, V'yaf alapi she'yitmameach, Im kol zeh ani ma'amin, Im kol zeh achakelo b'chol yom she'yavu. Ani ma'amin, ani ma'amin, ani ma'amin, ani ma'amin.
Shabbat Shalom,
Shabbat Shalom.
and Shabbat Shalom to everyone joining us wherever you may be. I would like to share a few thoughts with you this Shabbat on what I believe to be the meaning of this day and the meaning of this service. Actually, I may walk forward. I may leave my notes here and walk forward for a moment. Let me briefly share with you what I think today, this Shabbat, is about. Can you hear me? On the 1st of September 1939, Nazi Germany declared war on the world and attacked Poland. Polish forces, and many of us remember the images that we saw through the years, of Polish fighters on horseback charging against German tanks, but Polish fighters were unable to stop the Polish advance, the Nazi advance on Poland. And Nazi forces, within about a week, reached the outskirts of Warsaw. They were at the gates of Warsaw by the 8th of September. And hundreds of thousands of people in Warsaw, approximately 250 to 300,000, hundreds of thousands of people in Warsaw, mounted a defense of Warsaw. And through bombardments of the Luftwaffe, of the Air Force, of the Nazi Air Force, through bombardments of the artillery, through bombardments of tanks, through attempted attacks, kept the Nazi armies at bay for approximately 3 weeks. Warsaw would become the capital that withstood the Nazis the longest time throughout Europe. No other capital resisted for a whole 3 weeks. By the end of September, the Polish government understood that it was hopeless and fled to Romania. The mayor of Warsaw capitulated, and on the 2nd of October, 1939, Nazi troops marched into Warsaw in a victory parade. Within 2 weeks, the Jews were dispossessed. The Jews were not allowed to use public transportation. The Jews were not allowed to use public parks. The Jews were not allowed to hold on to professional positions. The Jews started to have to wear yellow stars. The Jews were immediately discriminated against. Within about a year, on the 12th of October 1940, the Nazis established the Warsaw Ghetto. At first, the Jews were told they were going to move into the Warsaw Ghetto and they were going to be allowed to work outside, to go to their stores, to go to their businesses, to work on the outside. The Warsaw Ghetto, before the war, had been a dense and vibrant neighborhood of approximately 100,000 people. The Jews, before the war, amounted to over 35% of the people of Warsaw. These 100,000 people who had lived in the area that would become the Warsaw Ghetto were removed from the Warsaw Ghetto to make space for the Jews, who would now enter into 2% of the territory of Warsaw. 35% of the citizens of Warsaw entered into 2% of the territory. In the meantime, many of the buildings had been destroyed by bombardments, by what had happened during the war. People moving into the Warsaw Ghetto moved into public gardens, into any shelter they could find, to have the Nazis come in and take over all the public spaces. The area that had been home to 100,000 people quickly became home to 300, 350, 400, at its height, 450,000 people. In the middle of November of 1940, on the 16th of November in 1940, a wall was erected around the Warsaw Ghetto. People could no longer come in and out of the Warsaw Ghetto. More than 2,500 Jewish stores and businesses were nationalized by the Nazis. Suddenly there was no more food coming into the ghetto. Suddenly there was nothing moving in. A group that formed part of a kind of an underground led by certain people in leadership recruited children 7 to 13 years old to try to pass through the cracks of the walls to get food, to get medicine from the outside in Warsaw and to bring it back in, with the Nazi forces looking to catch them. The Nazis, in the meantime, had created a council of Jews, what was called a Judenrat, of 24 people, along with assistants, along with others. They also created a Jewish security apparatus to help manage things in the ghetto. They told members of the Judenrat, their administrative help, and this Jewish safety organization that they would be well treated. They would be receiving preferential treatment when things happened. The leader of the Judenrat was an engineer by the name of Adam Cherniakov, who was appointed by the Nazis and had to lead this Judenrat. Food became scarce, medication was almost non-existent. Food rations in the ghetto amounted to approximately 185 calories a day. 185 calories a day is less than a fifth of what a grown person needs in order to survive. People were starving in the streets. People were dying of illnesses in the streets. In the meantime, additional people were being sent into the ghetto. Gypsies, thousands of gypsies were sent to the ghetto, as well as Christians, mostly Catholics, of Jewish descent, who fell foul of the Nazi racial laws. There were churches in the Warsaw ghetto. Hundreds of thousands of people in the Warsaw ghetto. This continued with people being killed, being abused, dying of malnutrition, dying of diseases. Men, women, and children. Our story really starts on the eve of Tisha B'Av, 1942. On the 21st of July, Tisha B'Av, the eve of Tisha B'Av, 1942, the Nazis ordered the Judenrat, Adam Cherniakov and the Judenrat, to bring together 6,000, then 7,000, eventually 10,000 Jews for transport to the east on a daily basis to a place from which these Jews would be collected, put onto trains and be sent to the east. They could bring 15 kilograms worth of luggage and 3 days worth of rations of food. Adam Cherniakov quickly understood that these people were being transported to their deaths. Within 3 or 4 days, he committed suicide. Other members of the Judenrat and of this Jewish security apparatus were pacified by the Nazis, were told that they would be okay. And to make a long story short, between the 21st of July, 1942, and with a few breaks in between until the 28th of September, 1942, between 300,000 and 350,000 Jews from the Warsaw Ghetto were sent to their deaths in Treblinka. The number of people who were left in the ghetto were 50 to 60,000. That was the beginning of the decision of the Jews who remained in the Warsaw Ghetto to plan an uprising. On the 9th of January, 1943, Heinrich Himmler made it to the Warsaw Ghetto and complained to the command of the SS in the Warsaw Ghetto that the liquidation of the ghetto and the killing of Jews was not proceeding quickly enough. On the 18th of January, Nazi troops surrounded the ghetto, came into the ghetto, and started yet another Aktion. However, this time they were met by resistance. Within 4 to 5 days, they were only able to round up between 5,000 to 6,000 Jews, to put them on trains and to send them off to their deaths, with Jews simply not coming out, with Molotov bottles being thrown at Nazi soldiers, with altercations and disruptions. That led to underground movements outside the ghetto, non-Jewish Polish underground movements, to try to support the Jewish underground within the Warsaw Ghetto. The underground consisted of left-wing organizations, right-wing organizations that after this started to dig bunkers, started to collect weapons, started to build, to create Molotov bottles, makeshift bombs, makeshift weapons. On Erev Pesach of 1943, after the 9th of January and the 18th of January 1943, on Erev Pesach of 1943, the 19th of April 1943, the Nazis surrounded the Warsaw Ghetto yet again and entered the Warsaw Ghetto. SS troops with a tank riding in front of them, to be confronted this time with weapons, with Molotov bottles, and with violence. A number of Jewish fighters were able to kill a number of the Nazi soldiers and to throw Molotov bottles at the Nazi tank that drove in front of them, causing a fire in the Nazi tank, causing the Nazi tank to stop and blocking the advance of Nazi troops into the ghetto. For the very first time, Nazi troops retreated. For between 3 and 4 weeks, a group of approximately 750 fighters, 750 famished Jewish men and women, led by names by people whom today to us are legend: Frankel and Applebaum, Yitzhak Zuckerman, Mordechai Anilevich, and, by the way, a woman who was one of the leaders of this rebellion, Tzvia Lubatnik, who survived. 750 lightly armed men and women with no training, with approximately 1.5 dozen other fighters from the Polish underground that came to help them, held Nazi troops at bay for days. This weekend, 80 years ago, this weekend in 1943, a Jewish flag was flying over the Warsaw Ghetto. A white flag with blue stripes and a blue Star of David. Nazi soldiers came in strength to surround the ghetto. They entered into the ghetto, burning it building by building. By the 8th of May, resistance was all but destroyed, with a bunker of Mordechai Anilevich on the 8th of May being bombed and burnt out. And on the 16th of May, the SS General Jürgen Stroop sent a message to the German authorities in Berlin, saying there was no more Warsaw Ghetto. The Warsaw Ghetto was now rubble. To give you an idea, approximately 17, 18, maybe 19 German soldiers were killed during these 3 and some weeks. Between 90 and 100 were injured. The casualties within the ghetto were above 13,000. 65,000 people were captured, were either executed or sent to death camps as the ghetto was liquidated. During the same time, the Zionist movement here in America was organizing. During the same time, a very important conference in New York for August was being planned. And during the same time, one Rabbi Abba Hillel Silver learned about what was going on in the Warsaw Ghetto. Rabbi Abba Hillel Silver would travel to the Waldorf Conference in New York and would for the first time speak up against the express wishes of the United States government. Rabbi Abba Hillel Silver knew that FDR and the American government were already in March and April and May of 1943 starting to speak about a new world order that would occur in the post-war period. A world order that would be founded in human rights, that would be founded in respect for minorities, that would be founded in dignity, that would be founded with international mechanisms that would secure minorities. A new international order that would be democratic, a new international order in the context of which these kinds of horrors of the Second World War and the Holocaust would not occur again. And Abba Hillel Silver spoke to delegates of the Zionist Organization of America at the end of August. Having learned all of this, and we know from his writings, having planned this through April and May of 1943, telling the American delegates of the Zionist Organization of America that they now had to raise their voices and to act on their political rights for the sake of having a seat at the table when this new world order arose. This new American jury for Abba Hillel Silver would be an American jury that would speak up, and that would speak up for political rights, because American Jews speaking for their political rights would mean that the Jews of Europe would have political rights, that the Jews of Palestine would have political rights. Because if the Jews of Palestine had political rights, they would be able to express their association, their link, and their historical connection to the land of Israel. And if they could express that connection to the land of Israel, they could argue for Jewish immigration to the land of Israel. And if Jewish immigration to the land of Israel could take place, a Jewish state could be established. And if a Jewish state could be established in the land of Israel, the Jewish political rights of Jews in the diaspora and in the United States of America could be reinforced. And if these rights could be reinforced, we, the Jews of America and the Jews of the diaspora, could speak up for rights and for freedoms and for the respect of minorities, and to make sure that the horrors of the Second World War and the Holocaust would not take place again. Do not be beguiled, Abba Hillel Silver said to the delegates on the 30th of August, 1943 at the Waldorf. Every link in the chain is important. April, May, June, July, August of 1943 are regarded by the scholars of American Jewish history as the moment of the coming of age of American Jewry. Abba Hillel Silver took over the leadership of American Jewry fighting for a Jewish homeland in Palestine from Stephen Wise, who was reluctant to speak up in the face of opposition from the American administration. Abba Hillel Silver set a very high bar for us. A very high standard. Abba Hillel Silver called us to speak up for right, for justice, for goodness, for the respect of minorities, and for the rule of law. Abba Hillel Silver called upon American Jewry to speak up for Jewry at large and for others. Abba Hillel Silver called upon American Jewry to support the State of Israel so that the political rights of Jews throughout the world could be supported. This, I think, is what today is about. As European Jewry was being destroyed, as the Warsaw Ghetto that Abba Hillel Silver mentioned in his August 30th speech, which already didn't exist, which was already in rubble by that time. As these were being destroyed, Abba Hillel Silver called upon us to be a new kind of Jew and to take our mission as Jews seriously. And so I want to say to you this Shabbat, may we have the wisdom, may we have the merit, may we have the courage to live up to the mission and to the standard that Rabbi Abba Hillel Silver set for us. Shabbat Shalom. At this time in our service, our minds turn to those who are in need of healing, to those who are in need of a special blessing, to those who might benefit from a prayer and a helping hand. We especially think of a number of people whose names you have shared with us, and in a moment I'm going to ask you to add the names you think of to this list. We think of Patrick Carroll, of Bonnie Chiswick, Barry Cott, Ella Dubrow, John Goodman, Karen Guttner, Maddie Jefferson, Renee Keller, Barbara Levine, Walter McCoy, Richard Moore, Edith and Levi Rubenstein, Bob Shippey, Alan Schwartz, and John Schindler. If at this moment you think of others, please utter their names now that we may pray for all of them together. Let us turn to the Mishaberach on page 253. Please join us.
Mishaberach Avoteinu Mikor Habracha Leimoteinu. May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen. Mishaberach Imoteinu Mikor Habracha Leavoteinu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say Amen.
Amen. We now turn to page 278 to count the number of days in the Omer. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kideshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu al sfirat haomer. Today is the 8th day, turning into the 9th, which is in the second week of our counting of the Omer. At this point, I'm going to invite you to please rise and turn with me to page 282 for the Aleinu.
מעלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדם, שלא שם חלקנו כחם, וגור עלינו ככל המונם, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ, ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו אחד.
You may be seated. On page 292 at the bottom of the page. We have lived in numberless towns and villages, and in too many of them we have endured cruel suffering. Some we have forgotten, others are sealed in our memory, a wound that does not heal. 100 generations of victims and martyrs, still their blood cries out from the earth, and so many at Dachau, at Buchenwald, at Babi Yar. What can we say? What can we do? How bear the unbearable, or accept what life has brought to our people? All who are born must die, but how shall we compare the slow passage of time with a callous slaughter of the innocent, cut off before their time? They lived with faith, not all, but many. And surely many died with faith in God, in life, in the goodness that even flames cannot destroy. May we find a way to the strength of that faith, that trust, that sure sense that life and soul endure beyond this body's death. They have left their lives to us. Let a million prayers rise whenever Jews worship. Let a million candles glow against the darkness of these unfinished lives.
stars up above, so far away we only see their light, long, long after the star itself is gone. And so it is with people that we loved. Their memories keep shining ever brightly, though their time with us is done. But the stars that light up the darkest night, these are the lights that guide us as we live our days. These are the ways we remember. We remember as we live our days. These are the ways we remember. We remember. יש כוכבים שאורם מגיע ארצה, רק כאשר הם עצמם עבדו ונם. יש אנשים שזיו זכרם מאיר שרם, עוד בתוכנו אורות אלה המאביקים בחשכת הליל, הם שמרים לאדם את הדרך, את הדרך. הם שמרים לאדם את הדרך, את הדרך. As we live our days, these are the ways we remember. We remember. As we live our days, these are the ways we remember. We remember. We remember. We remember.
At this time, we especially remember our loved ones, those who have made us what and who we are, those upon whose shoulders we stand. We think especially of those who were laid to rest this week, Ralph B. Sills, and those who were laid to rest within the last 30 days, for whom we are in the Shloshim period: Bruce Diamond, Shirley Epler, Judith M. Goodman, Alan S. Hartman, Lois J. Cookie Morris, Elaine Key Rembrandt, Gerald S. Gold, Diane Kirstein, Marlene Leeds, and Barbara Robinson. And we take into our hearts, we recall with love those whose yahrzeits occur at this time: Paulina Adelson, John Anisfield, Lena Nidus Arnson, Morris Arsham, Marie Mertzel Asherman, Clarice E. Auerbach, Rebecca B. Battler, Augusta F. Berland, Melvine S. Bialowski, David Block, Hattie S. Bram, Gertrude Libby Brown, Lawrence D. Kaplane, Ruth M. Cohen, Rose Davidson, Martin F. DeVay, Fanny C. Eisenman, Isaac Evans, Susan Falb, Hannah S. Fleeter, Bernard H. Freed, Lillian S. Friedman, Harry Gershon, Abe Goldberg, Herman Gottlieb, Dolly Haber, Samuel Halper, Esther Dushawn Hecht, Rhea N. Heller, Gordon A. Herstam, Deborah K. Hertz, Alan B. Himmel, Horty Himmel, Howard Stanley Israel, Bernice Jablau, Annabelle Kaplan, Margaret Katz, Dr. Robert A. Keller, Stephen Burt Keller, Regina M. Kern, Eleanor B. Klausner, Robert H. Klausner, Dr. Joseph Klein, Isidore Katz, Rose Lappin, Cora Lederer, Herman Lefkoff, Leona Lefkowitz, Hyman B. Levy, Dr. Kenneth I. Lieberman, Lois H. Luntz, Bernice Lutzker, Jason Lutzker, Dr. Armand Mandel, Helen Mann, Isabel Koff Margolis, Archie M. Marks, Rose Mashke, Max F. Mizell, Sylvia Millett, Myron H. Moreau, Samuel Newman, Francis Pokras, Mike Rosenberg, Ida Rosenthal, Marvin A. Saltzman, Isidore J. Salzer, Max Samuel Schiffman, Nathan Schlesinger, Rose Schnall, Donald J. Silverstein, Harvey Simon, Karen May Sobel, Julia Kahn Sogg, Elizabeth Liesel Sondheimer, Benjamin G. Spaeth, Lillian Sands Spiegel, Lillian Irene Stein, Max Teitelbaum, Rose Sasnowitz Weinberg, Sanford Weinberg, Irene G. Weitzman, Henrietta Weisenhoff, Joseph Weisenhoff, Sam Wolf, Lillian Fried Yamins, Bernice Myers Yaris, and Harry Zake. If at this time you are mourning the passing of a loved one whose name has not just been read out, or if you are recalling the yahrzeit of a loved one or a friend whose name has not just been read out, or if I mispronounced any of the names on this list, I invite you to please utter these names now that we may recite the Kaddish in their honor together. If at this time you are mourning the passing of a loved one whom we have lost within the last week and for whom we are within the Shiva period, I invite you now to please rise. If you are mourning the passing of a loved one within the last 30 days for whom we are within the Shloshim period, I invite you now to please rise. If you are marking a yahrzeit at this time, I invite you now to please rise. And now, as a caring congregation, I invite us all to please rise as we turn to page 294 and join together in the Kaddish. Please join me. Yitgadal v'yitkadash שמי רבה. בעלמא דברה חירותי וימליך מלכותי בחייכון וביומייכון ובחיי דכל בית ישראל בעגלה ובזמן קריב ואמרו אמן יהי שמי רבא מבורך לעולם ולעולמי עולמיה יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי דקודשה בריחו לעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה תושבחת ונחמת דאמירן בעלמא ואמרו אמן. יהי שלמה רבה מן שמיה וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן. May the source of peace and comfort bring peace and comfort to us and to all who mourn. And let us together say, amen. You may be seated. It has become our custom to move from moments of remembrance to moments of achievement and to moments of recognition and of gratitude for the goodness we have in our lives. And I think the greatest gratitude, the greatest goodness that we have is being here together, especially on this Shabbat. I would invite you at this moment to please, for a brief time, think about the gifts that we all enjoy as we prepare to join together in the Shechianu.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam שהחיינו וקיימנו והגיענו לזמן הזה.
Amen. I believe that our closing song is Ledor Vador. Please join us as we launch upon the Kiddush and the Motzi.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei pari hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu v'shabbat kodsho b'ratzon hinchilanu zikaron lema'aseh v'reishi ki hu yom tehila lemikra el kodesh zeicher l'tziat mitzrayim ki vanu v'charta v'yodanu kidashta mikohamim v'shabbat kodshecha b'ahava uvratzon hinachaltanu baruch atah Adonai b'chodesh ha-Shabbat. Amen.
L'chaim.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen.
Adonai oz le'amo yiten, Adonai yevarech et amo v'shalom. May God grant us strength. May God grant us peace. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.